So let's quickly go through the agenda for day 4. We are going to learn how to implement basic CICD in Jenkins. So we are going to create something called Freestyle job in Jenkins, and using that Freestyle job, we are going to automate the build using Maven, and we will also go ahead and then deploy the Java web application which we have already configured in GitHub into Tomcat. And using that Freestyle job, we will also go ahead and automate code coverage using JaCoCo. And we will also learn what are the different ways you can trigger Jenkins job. That is what, guys, we are going to learn as part of day 4. Awesome. So let's get started, guys. So if you look at this diagram, we have already configured Jenkins. We also have configured Tomcat server as well. We also configured a Java project inside our GitHub repository. So we are going to create something called Freestyle job in Jenkins. Using that Freestyle job, we will automate the build, we will automate the deployment, we will also automate code coverage check, and then we will also automate a unit test execution as well. I know our application is plain vanilla web app. We may not have any unit test, but if you already have unit test as part of your code, during Maven build, it will be auto executed. So I will explain you where that is going to happen. All right. So this is exactly what we are going to do as part of today's lecture. So if you look at the bigger picture, so this is our ultimate goal, isn't it? We have to implement CICD end-to-end, correct? By integrating various tools. But as part of today's lecture, we will just integrate, Tomcat with Jenkins. We will integrate JaCoCo with Jenkins, and then we will integrate, our Java project, right? Which is configured in GitHub. All right, great. So let's get started, guys. So if you look at the prerequisite, yes, we need to have our Java project configured. So this is our Java project configured already in GitHub. And we also need to have our Jenkins up and running. So if you guys remember, we already configured Jenkins. So this is my Jenkins. And we also need to have Tomcat up and running. So this is our Tomcat which is up and running. Perfect. And then the way we are going to automate the build is by using a tool called Maven, isn't it? So we also need to configure Maven inside our Jenkins. If you guys remember, we have already installed Jenkins. So what we have to do is, let's go inside Jenkins. So click on Manage Jenkins. Make sure you log in inside Jenkins, right? I don't need this. Let me ignore this, and go to Tools, and then scroll down, click on Add Maven. So this is where we have to let Jenkins know what type of Maven that we are going to use. So go ahead and then type Maven, and then you can leave like this, install automatically. I understand we have already installed Maven inside Jenkins, but it is up to you. Either you can do it like this, or if you want to provide the Maven path, you can also do it like this as well, right? So when I say Maven path, so this is a Jenkins, right? So you can say Maven version. So this is where Maven was installed, right? And then you can go ahead and then provide path of Maven over here as well. But I'm okay. I'm going to go with the install automatically option, and then click on save. And then let's get back to our instructions. And we also need to install the plugins as well. So if you look at this diagram, Jenkins is going to integrate with Tomcat as well as JaCoCo. So how do you think Jenkins can integrate with them? You have to install something called plugins. So we will be installing 2 different plugins, deploy to container plugin, that is mainly for integrating with Tomcat, and then JaCoCo plugin. So JaCoCo is a code coverage tool. So we have to install these 2 plugins. So how do you install them? Go back to Jenkins. Obviously, you'll have to log in as administrator. I already logged in. Go to plugins, click on available plugins, and then start search for deploy to. So select this one. So you'll have to select this plugin, and then we will also look for JaCoCo plugin. So click on these two. So this is good, at least for this particular lecture. So we are good in installing these two plugins. So go ahead and then click on install. All right, so the plugin got installed, perfect. So click on Jenkins. So we took care of, all the prerequisite in order for us to start building our basic CICD job. Okay. So now let's go ahead and then click on create a job. So what we are going to do is, whatever the Java project that we have already configured, we are going to automate the build using Maven, automate the deployment inside Tomcat server, and then we will also go ahead and then automate code coverage check using JaCoCo. So whenever you try to click on a new job, so there are so many options in Jenkins, isn't it? So you see like freestyle project, pipeline, multi-configuration project, folder, and then multi-branch pipeline and so on, right? We would be learning about freestyle project, and we will also learn about pipeline, which is kind of modern way of implementing CICD. Which is a recommended way of implementing CICD. And then of course, we will also learn about multi-branch pipeline as we move forward. Okay. But as part of today's lecture, we are going to start with the basic implementation. So we are going to start with the freestyle project. So if you're really wondering about freestyle project, let me take you guys to ChatGPT. So if you ask this question, what is freestyle job in Jenkins? So you see here, right? So like I mentioned, this is a basic implement. So like I mentioned, freestyle job is like, a very basic implementation, isn't it? So it's very easy to configure, right? You can also trigger builds manually and then other ways, right? So what is a typical use case? So whenever you have very simple, build, right? You don't have any complex application, right? It's a very simple application. In that case, you can start creating a freestyle job and then you can do that. Okay, but these days, most of our applications are, complex and then scalable application, right? So it is recommended to go with pipeline jobs. Okay, so like I said, we're going to discuss about pipeline a little bit later. Great. So now let's go ahead and then, create a new freestyle job. So I'm going to say my first automate job, click on freestyle project, click on OK. So now go to source code management. So we already know, right, where is our source code, correct? So click on Git. So we need to provide our repository URL. So this is my repository URL. So go ahead and then provide that. So as soon as you provide, we already started getting some error message, right? So basically what Jenkins is trying to do, Jenkins is trying to check out code from GitHub. This is a private repository, so you'll have to give GitHub credentials. But if you actually see here, it clearly says that password for authentication was removed already, right? So what does it mean? So let me actually take you guys to that particular URL. Okay, so just give me a minute. So if you see here, if you actually see here, they clearly say that, password authentication for Git has been removed in favor of more secure authentication method. And then they are actually asking us to create something called personal access token, which is nothing but PAT. So now we have to create PAT. Let's go to GitHub, go to settings and go to developer settings, go to personal access token, click on tokens. So click on generate new token, click on classic. I'm okay with classic. So I have enabled multi-factor authentication. So I will have to give a password. I'll have to put in the code. Okay. So let's give some name. And again, depending on the password policy your company is actually going to follow, you can give anything, but I'm going to keep it just 7 days. And then click on generate token. It says already exists, but that's fine. Let me give a unique name. There you go. So this is the token. So copy the token, go back to GitHub, click on add Jenkins, and username is, that's my username, right? So that is actually nothing but you can clearly see what is your username, right? So that is this username, that is your username. And then put in your password, and then here I'm going to say Pat added. Okay, add, and then you have to select it from the drop down. Great. I understand my pat has been exposed, but you know what? Obviously, this will be expired within 7 days. And then right after this video, I will also go ahead and then delete the token as well, so that it can't be used by anyone else. Fantastic. So now let's go ahead and then provide our branch name. Our branch name is main, but let's just confirm it. So this is our branch name for our Java project. Fantastic. And then let's also go ahead and then configure how we can trigger our builds. But so let's also go ahead and then configure how this particular job can be triggered. So as you can see here, there are so many ways you can trigger your Jenkins job, but let me just go ahead and choose poll SCM option. So this is actually nothing but you can schedule your job based on a periodic interval, right? For example, if you click on this question mark, let's say you wanted to trigger the build job once in every 15 minutes. Okay, so you can copy and paste this. So what Jenkins would do is Jenkins would check with GitHub once in every 15 minutes. If there is any code change on that repository for that branch, then it will automatically trigger this job. Okay, but I don't want to do 15 minutes. I want to do once in every 2 minutes. But again, this is purely depending on the requirement. There are other ways as well you can configure. I do have a beautiful diagram. So if you look at this diagram, so there are other ways you can trigger your Jenkins build job as well. So we will talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so that is the poll SCM. Okay, so let's go back to our build steps. So let's go to build steps and then click on add build step. So the way we are going to perform build is using Maven. If you guys remember, we have already configured Maven 3, correct? And then if you actually see, right, so Maven is a declarative tool, right? So what is Maven? So Maven is one of the popular Java-based build tools. So using Maven, you can automate your Java-based applications, and using Maven also you can create a Java project as well, right? So you can manage the entire project lifecycle of a Java project using Maven. So we have to give some Maven goal. Let's go ahead and then provide clean install. So basically clean is for cleaning the workspace, and then install is for, to build the code and then package the code, as a war file or whatever, the binary that we wanted to create. Okay. And then click on advanced. So if you look at our project, so this is the repo name, right? And then this is the project name, correct? And then if you see here, pom.xml file resides inside this web app name. So by default, it assumes that it is part of the root of the repository, but it is actually inside my web app. So let's go ahead and then provide the path of pom.xml file. Fantastic. And then let's go ahead and then provide our, post build action. So click on add post build action. So if you see here, we wanted to include code coverage as well, right? So click on record JaCoCo coverage report. So basically, JaCoCo is one of the popular Java-based code coverage tool. So if you're wondering what do you mean by code coverage, so let's go to ChatGPT. If you're wondering what is code coverage, so this will clearly tell you, right? So code coverage is nothing but it's a way of measuring how much percentage of your source code that has been executed during the testing cycle, right? For example, let's say you are a Java developer, you are working on a functionality, so you are implementing your functionality, but how do you ensure that your functionality is properly tested? You'll have to add corresponding unit tests, right? But how do you measure you have given a good coverage for your implementation, right? So how do you ensure you have written proper unit testing for your implementation? So this is where you can actually use a tool called JaCoCo, which is a code coverage tool. So using code coverage, you can make sure that how much of your code is tested, which part of the codes are not tested, and so on, right? So this is a great way of measuring your code coverage. Okay. So basically your code coverage, generally code coverage is going to be measured in terms of percentage. So it can do coverage on all this aspect of it: line coverage, statement coverage, branch coverage, function coverage, and condition coverage, and so on. Okay. Since we are actually using Java, we are using JaCoCo as a code coverage tool. You can also use Kobayashi as well. Okay. And again, based on your programming language, you can use, the respective code coverage tool. All right. Okay, great. And then go back to post build action and then do our last step, which is deployment. So click on deploy var/here to a container. So basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to do a deployment of our application. So click on this question mark. So it is asking what do you want to deploy, right? So our case, if I can take you back to pom.xml file, you can see here, right? So we are going to build this as a var file. Okay, I understand this is not a container based application. We're going to talk about Spring Boot application during. So I understand this is purely a web app, so we will automate Spring Boot application when we are going to talk about Docker and all. So I understand this is a plain vanilla web app. Okay, so we are just doing our basic CICD, so that's why I have selected this particular app. But when we are going to discuss containers, Docker, and Kubernetes and whatnot, right? So we will actually use a Spring Boot application and we will containerize that and then we will deploy inside Kubernetes cluster. Okay, but at least just for this lecture, we are just using this plain vanilla app. All right. So you'll have to say what do you wanted to deploy. So for now, I'm going to copy like this, but don't worry, I will explain you where this is actually coming from. Okay. So in a short form, this is nothing but pick up the var file from from the workspace. That's what that means. Okay. And then click on add container. If you guys remember, we have installed Tomcat 9. So let's select Tomcat 9. And then it is asking for the Tomcat URL. So we already know the Tomcat URL, correct? So go ahead and then enter the Tomcat URL. And then we have to enter the Tomcat credentials. So click on add. If you guys remember, during our Tomcat installation, if I can show you real quick. So do you all remember we have added some password? Do you all remember? Some username and password, right? So the username is Tomcat and password is password@123. I think so, but let's just double check. Let me log in into Tomcat real quick. So if you look at here, this is a username and this is the password. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to say password as password. Awesome. And then I'm going to say Tomcat credential ordered by coach. Click on add. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and then select this from the drop down. Awesome. So that's it, right? So let's do a quick recap. Let me first save it. So basically what we have done is, as part of source code management, we have provided our repository URL, and then we have added our username and then PAT, which is nothing but personal access token. And then you have to specify your branch name, right? From where you wanted to check out the code, and then how you wanted to trigger the build. So we are okay with Pole SCM, at least for this particular job. And then we are going to use Maven for building and packaging. And then we also need to provide the path of the pom.xml file. And then we are also performing code coverage check as well. And then last but not the least, we are also going ahead and then deploying our war file inside Tomcat web container. Fantastic. So click on apply and save. So let me do a build now. So as you can see here, the build is running already. So I know I kickstarted the build manually, but if you wanted to trigger in an automated manner, you can also do that when you actually make a code change. So wow, if you see here, the build is success. So you can clearly see here, this was able to, deploy the application. So go back to the job, click on code coverage trend. Wow. Do you all see here? So this is actually a code coverage report provided by JaCoCo. So how do you check whether the application have been deployed or not? So you can go to Tomcat, click on my web app. Wow. So do you all see here? So if you're wondering where this is actually coming from, let's go back to our code, click on my web app. So you see here, right? So this is actually coming from GitHub. So if you think about this, right, the way this job has been configured, so whenever you are making a code change within 2 minutes, this will go ahead and then run the build, isn't it? So why don't we, test this out? So let's do one thing. Let's actually go to our GitHub, click on edit. You can also make a code change like this, although this is not recommended. You need to actually commit the code from your local machine, but I just wanted to quickly show you. So I'm going to say, hi, welcome to CICD using Jenkins. I'm going to say we are learning basic CICD implementation. Click on commit changes and then say triggering CICD job. Click on commit changes. So I have committed my code changes, isn't it? So now if I can go back to Jenkins, you're gonna see this should trigger the build in 2 minutes, anytime in 2 minutes. Wow. So the build is done. Click on console output. So it clearly says that this was started by an SCM change, which is nothing but source code management change. And we can also see our commit message here as well, right? So far so good. So now if I can take you back to Tomcat, click on refresh. Wow. Do you all see here? So we were able to automate the build, automate the deployment, and then automate code coverage check using our Jenkins Freestyle job. So let me show you a couple of things, guys. If I can take you back to the Freestyle job. So if you're really wondering where this is actually coming from, right? So please do understand, whenever you create a job in Jenkins UI, it is going to create a folder with the same name, obviously, inside the workspace folder. So if I can take you back to, Jenkins. So if you go to /var/lib Jenkins folder, and then do you see a workspace folder here? So let's go inside the workspace folder. clear screen, and then you type ls minus al. Wow, there you go. You see here now? So you see a folder with the same name. So now go inside that folder name, and then you type ls minus al. So if you see here, so this is where Jenkins would keep all the build and configuration related information, right? So you can go inside my web app. There you go. You see here, target. So now you're going to see the war file, correct? So basically, so you'll have to provide something like my web app /target /my web app.war. So we are kind of avoiding, this is kind of a short form. You can also give like this too. For example, instead of giving like this, which is not so good practice, I would encourage you all to give something like this, my web app.war file, right? So basically you are saying that, you know, from the workspace directory, just pick up the war file after this, right? So click on apply and save, go to click on build now. I know I'm kickstarting the build manually just to test this. And whenever you do the build manually, it is going to tell you who actually started the build, right? So there you go now. You see here, you were able to even deploy also. So yeah, so that's how guys, you know, that's how you can implement your basic freestyle job using Jenkins. So I will see you guys in the next video.